theater. Very busy week with stuff happening after work. This week I saw 2 theater shows. The first one is called the Nanoman. It's an interactive nerdcore musical. I ended up going to it because a friend, Gina Chan, who I think I mentioned, I had lunch with a couple weeks ago because she saw my VR lecture at the Microsoft building and saw some opportunities for us to collaborate. So, you know, we had a nice dinner before the show and talked about different places I could be on, possibly a board with her as, you know, an architectural influence, and then also doing some VR stuff. So that was really cool. And so then we went to the show called the Nanoman, which is at the Parkside Lounge down near Houston Street, like Houston Street and Avenue B in New York. And it was one of her friends from San Francisco who was in the show, who had been flown to New York just for this part. And it was a really wonderful show. I just want to say that I've been to a lot of off-Broadway shows, things small and big. This was a very small production, only had 4 actors, I guess, kind of 5. It's created by a duo who call themselves Briniger and Knight, or Knight and Briniger, who do, I guess, all sorts of very cool interactive multimedia musical kind of shows together. And this was just a ton of fun. This was the most fun I've had at the theater in a long time. The show only ran about an hour, but it had this like projection system going on that had this kind of 8-bit comic book style, which reminded me a little bit of what Dan King and I were trying to do with Adobe Edge during Dystopia. And this was just so elegant in that not only did it look like a 2D video game with comic book elements, but at a certain point you were even able to play it and it becomes like an audience interaction thing. And also, I mean, the premise very briefly is a German scientist woman, Dr. X, finds this way to basically attack cancer cells by modifying a plant virus. So it's, you know, turning this like evil thing into a good thing. And as it turns out, this is based on real science. And from my understanding, the science behind this is pretty genuine. And they actually thought that a cool way to present the science would be through some kind of musical form. So I guess the research lab hired Knight and Briniger to create this musical or something like that. And yeah, so the German scientist who's dying of cancer finds this way to fight cancer, and she creates this superhero called the Nanoman, which is this modified plant virus, and that's played by a person, and he goes through and fights these macrophages, and it's just a ton of fun and very catchy music. I've had a couple of the songs running through my head since I saw the show on Wednesday. The chorus line for one of the songs is to the nearest chemo center in a 50-mile radius. And I've just had that chorus line stuck in my head. So it's just an incredibly creative, fun, engaging show. My only critique of it, if you look at my review on my theater page, is the fact that the setting was not quite perfect, because it wanted to be kind of like a conference center with a lot of audience interaction, and the projections were a big part of it, but the projections, as it had to be done in the Parkside Lounge, were kind of off to the side, and there were drink orders being taken the entire time, which kind of distracted from the show, which was only an hour long, and we really wanted to be able to focus on it. But anyway, fantastic show. I think they first came out with the show in like 2013. I think it's over now in New York here in 2015, but I guess maybe it'll pop up again sometime. But keep an eye on these guys, Knight and Briniger. They're an incredibly talented duo. Check out their website. You know, fantastic. Nanoman, 5 stars with a confidence of 5. I met down at the Opera America conference because Thomas Rhodes, who I'd met last year at the Opera America conference, had told me to get in touch with her because she was interested in doing some kind of new technology opera with her company. And so I had a nice evening with her and Derek Wang, who wrote the Scalia Ginsberg opera, and we were all chatting about the potential of virtual reality and augmented reality and some of these newer technologies being used in performances. What On-Site Opera does, which is really cool, is they basically try to avoid set design. They try to find really engaging, interesting locations to stage operas in and make it all part of the experience. So it's very intimate, it's very close. At this particular location was a mansion up on 96th Street. The first part of the opera took place out in a courtyard. The second part took place inside this beautiful library, and the opera singers are right there, and they're not mic'd or anything, and it's like in your face and really powerful and intimate, and it allowed the actors to, or the performers to act, which is kind of, I guess you could say, unusual for opera, since you're usually viewing it at such a distance, because you're able to read facial expressions and some really subtle cues of emotion that usually get lost in opera. So this to me felt very fresh. It felt like a very new way to play with an art form that generally is regarded of kind of stale and kind of in the past, and I thought it was fantastic. I loved it. It was in Italian, so there were super titles. The music was beautiful, the performers were incredible, the lighting was able to be really cool, especially in the library. It was super hot outside, which I guess is, you know, one of the perils you run into when you want to make opera happen in some more dynamic spaces, but good for Jessica and the crew. They were handing out water bottles to everyone, so that was a really nice idea and definitely helped. Liz couldn't go, which was a shame, because also before this I actually went to a Remembrance Scholar little alumni thing for like half an hour down on 43rd Street, which was kind of a nice way to connect with a bunch of Syracuse alumni that I otherwise never would have met. But Liz was supposed to be with me for that and then the opera, but she couldn't go because she had to work late that night, so I ended up going with a friend of Sarah Lamar's. Sarah Lamar starred in Dystopia Pia back in July of last year. She goes to the New School, studies acting, which is a very interesting coincidence since the New School's School of Music was like a sponsor, had some involvement with the Barber of Seville and on-site opera, and the New School of Music and the New School of Acting apparently are going to be merging, and they're going to form the New School of the Performing Arts. What is back there? Oh man, there's like a little raccoony thing. I love being outside. There's some raccoony thing over there, but it's like got a big flat tail. Maybe it's like a platypus. I don't know. Maybe it's a badger. Badger. And then everything connects because my friend Anton Spina, who just had a baby, by the way, I'll talk about that more, I guess, in the baby section, has a show that is going to be going up in the Venus Festival, which is like a companion festival to the Thespis Theater Festival, which Dystopia Pia was in back in July. And so he's looking for actors and all sorts of people to get involved with his show, Broker Bankrolled, which is going to be happening in January. And so he's like, do you know any actors that might be interested in the show? So I asked Maria, who I went to this opera with, and she was like, yeah, sure, I'm free in January, so she might be involved with Danton's show now, and I love how all these things kind of connect and work together. After the show, I got to talk more with Jessica Kiger and meet Eric, who's the other executive producer of On-Site Opera, and we got to talk more about new technologies, and I showed them an outline of a libretto I've been working on, kind of inspired by Jessica back in the Opera America conference, about something that I thought would be a really interesting thing to do with new technology, which is kind of like a Lion Witch in the Wardrobe meets Annie or Oliver Twist kind of thing, where, you know, this orphan who really doesn't feel like they belong in this world gets at a museum that's closed, and they have this like really sad tour of this, you know, closed down museum. At a gift shop, he ends up getting some orange safety scissors, some big orange sunglasses, and one of those, you know, Elmer's glue with the orange top. And what that ends up being is a way, the orange sunglasses are a way for him to see potential places where he can cut a hole to other worlds. The safety scissors are to cut the holes to the other worlds, and the glue is to seal them back up. And so the show is about him going to this other world, making basically his best friend over there. Things get out of control a bit when people are coming over from the other world, and he tries to close the hole, but he realizes he can't until everyone's back in the world they're supposed to be in. And then when he finally does have to close it at the end, he basically has to say goodbye to the only friend he's ever had. But it's okay because the whole experience gave him confidence that he never had, and now he's able to, you know, talk to a girl that he's had a crush on and that kind of thing. So it's a very feel-good, kind of light, interesting opera that plays with new technology and has kind of a classic story to it, so it's very digestible and seems like the right avenue to be exploring things like new technologies. And also, it turns out I found out that On-Site Opera is trying to do a lot more with like children's opera, and this could actually be a great candidate for that. So I hope that something goes further with that. Jessica and Eric seemed very excited about it at the time. We're going to keep talking. I think I'm also going to be helping them soon creating an app that'll be like a digital program for all their future shows, so I hope that works out. That'd be really cool. All sorts of opera stuff kind of going into VR. More VR now.